to our, our Building a High Performance Team series. Glad to have you. I'm Dee Wilmore, Managing Broker for Radius. Welcome, everybody. Glad to have you. Um, Good that you guys are all thinking about building your teams and looking at your business forward. These are always positive steps in the iteration and the genesis of our next phase of business. Some of you are just kind of starting off and building your team. Some of you have been building a team for a period of time and have several players on your team that you're completely comfortable with, and life is good and everybody's going forward. But even with that being said, there are always ways that we can grow and improve our teams and really focus on what we all do well so that we can do even more business as we move forward. So, welcome today to today's session. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about team org structure, the organization of your team. Now, I know the word team means something different for everyone. A team can be as small as two people and as large as, however you can imagine, right? But as we talk about actually building our teams and looking at our team dynamic, it's important for us to assess the overall need as we add players to our team. Sometimes a team can be so large it's unmanageable. Have any of you ever experienced that? Or some of you may be going through that right now or been a part of that in the past. But sometimes a team is so large that it's unmanageable and then becomes, in some respects, adversarial because everybody's jockeying for a position of quote unquote power inside the dynamics of the team. So we'll address a little bit of that today. But, really looking at the roles of each and every team member is critical to the success of a team. So a team is just as it implies, two or more people getting together to perform a common task for the success of everyone involved, right? You look at it from a sporting perspective, everybody in the team has a specific role, right? Not everybody's going to be the quarterback, or not everybody's going to be the pitcher or the catcher, or whatever team you're into, the goalie, or whatever it is, whatever sport you're into, you can apply your own analogy. Not everybody's going to be everything. We don't all do the same thing. We have different sets of skills, right? A real estate team is a group of professionals with complementary skill sets that join together to close more deals. That's the definition of a team. And that's what you all are doing. You're building your brand, you're developing brand equity and market awareness. You're doing things that cause people to naturally gravitate to you so that you can grow and enhance and be a better practitioner. That's what we all want. The National Association of Realtor surveyed teams and shows that the average real estate team had four more people, about 80% of those who had a real estate license. So why is that important? Because as we look at a team dynamic, we also look at our ancillary folks within the team, people who do administrative tasks or that do the non-productive tasks that free us up as licensed practitioners to go out and actually conduct business. In other words, be face to face, belly to belly with our target audiences so that we are doing more business. And certainly we know that in a time like we're in right now, to where the real estate space is going through some transitions, some adjustments, we want to make sure that we're always quieting the noise, right? That we're always dealing in a way to where our consumers expressly realize our values almost always. And when I say expressly, that means in writing. And when I say in writing, that means they're getting into contract with us, right? That's the biggest determinant of if someone realizes your value is if they're actually in contract with you or they're willing to sign an agreement with you for you to work with them. And so some of that involves people on our team that do some busy work or the interface between, let's say, the paperwork or the data and the customer. That's important. So as we look at building our teams, we want to make an accounting for that type of person. And you as the team lead, or if you're a team member, but specifically the team lead, you're constantly assessing, do I have enough business in my queue to hire multiple people? So let's say you're primarily a listing agent, as a team leader, or as a business partner. Are you having so much flow over business? In other words, multiple buyers that can be given to someone else functionally, that you're requiring a team? Or is it that you're so busy with the work that you have, you don't have time for paperwork? So that's kind of how we assess that and the need for that. I almost always suggest getting an admin or having an admin type person on your team, even if it's another licensed person who doesn't necessarily transact business in the way that you do as the team leader, but someone who's very skilled at the at admin part. So again, about 80% of your team will probably have a real estate license, and the bigger your team grows, the more you may have either personal or team assistants, things like that. Nearly 3/4 of team members were compensated at least in part based on commissions, right? We know that we are in a performance-based business. We all know that. Hence why we receive a commission. And that commission is based on the completion or the successful fulfillment of the work that we've done. So that's how we get compensated. There are some team models, however, that compensate their team members based on a formulated salary, or a share of monies that come in, not necessarily commission based. But we're a performance based industry, right? We feed when everybody feeds, so to speak. So when we close that deal, all that were involved get a piece of that. And that's kind of how it functions. But your team may function slightly differently. You may have it to where you want to compensate your team in a way that they're not receiving commissions. There have been several models that exist in that way. You've had companies like Redfin, which just recently switched their overall business model from a salary based commission model, or to a commission based real estate model. And that's primarily in their Los Angeles and their San Francisco markets, or northern and southern California. But they've fundamentally switched how they do business. So that may or may not make a difference. It allows an agent to make, or a real estate practitioner to make more money, which is what we all want to do, right? Because we're now cutting into a deeper portion of the pie, and so that's a benefit for all that's involved. But it also leaves us without, quote unquote, a safety net, right? The difference between a commission based lifestyle and a salary based lifestyle. Essentially, in a salary based lifestyle, what we primarily trade is time for money. And that trading of time for money pretty much caps what our income potential would look like, because salaries are limited. We know they only go so far. Whereas a commission based lifestyle is, the better we do, the more we earn, right? And that's a great thing. But it also leaves us exposed, because sometimes in a commission lifestyle, we're not doing so well, which means that we have nothing coming in. So I think it was a great move for a company like Redfin to make some fundamental adjustments to how they practice, because that also increases the quality of practitioner that's on your team. And that's one thing I want to talk about as we go through this session today. Again, teams come in all shapes and sizes, ranging from two highly experienced agents that work together closely to close deals, or a single licensed person who has lots of assistants under them, or a team that has a more qualified structure, like someone who focuses primarily on buyers, someone who is a skilled listing agent. Sometimes they have what's called an inside sales associate. And what someone like that does is essentially makes calls to prospects, follows up with prospects. But the benefit of an inside sales associate is that they are more than likely licensed people, and they can do a lot of the heavy work, or do a lot of the work that's involved in terms of having a license. So lots of team structures, depend, part of it is assessing where you are in your business model. and what your particular needs are. Now, I know for some of you, it's been a relatively slow year. And when I say a relatively slow year, there's been lots of changes in the real estate space over the last few months, both from a lack of inventory to shakeups within the industry, from legal proceedings, things like that. So some of you may have had a challenging year. But as we look at moving forward, what are the benefits of having a real estate team, or established as a real estate team, or building your brand? One, which is, there's kind of a reduction of cost, right? We're saving money when we're able to align with others. When we're a solo business owner, we bear the burden of everything. We become experts in marketing, and we become experts in social media, and we become experts in the sales process, and we become our own CPA, and so on, right? We wear so many different hats when we're a solo practitioner, and particularly as we become more sophisticated, more experienced solo practitioners. We're bearing the burden of a lot of things in order for us to be successful. And there's that thing that we call time management, which is what we all live by. There's only so much time that we can afford. Our primary job is to always be face to face with our customer base. And when you're doing your marketing, and when you're doing your own finances, and when you're managing your own transactions and doing all that stuff, the more time you spend in the non-productive side of your business, the less opportunity that you have to be face to face with your customer base. And that's really what drives your business, is the more opportunities that you have to spend with your customer base, the more revenue that you'll bring into your business, the happier you'll feel. But when you're having to spend that time kind of doing some of the busy work, it really wreaks havoc on your time management. So we share costs, we share expertise, right? If you're relatively new to the business and you're looking to be a more experienced practitioner, sometimes bringing someone who has a more expertise in a certain area on your team is a benefit to you, because not only do they help you to grow and to learn, but they also give a different credibility to your team. My suggestion is always this, particularly when we're talking about expertise. Everybody starts somewhere. I don't believe in the word new. I believe in that's just a different starting point than what someone may be familiar with, right? We're never really new to an experience. It's just a different starting point, or we're looking at our lives experientially and we're saying, this is a challenge I haven't quite met before, but you're willing to undertake it. And you're constantly learning and evolving even as you're going through that. So you're not new. The second you got your license, you're not new. You're now a licensed practitioner. Each step is a milestone. So you're always looking at different milestones, but you're not necessarily new to the business, even though I say that. But we often assess, am I looking to just gain or garner new skills, or am I really so unfamiliar with what I need to do that I need additional assistance? So when we look at forming a team, sometimes you as the team lead have this brilliant idea and a concept of where you'd like to see next steps happen for you. And oftentimes that requires getting someone who's either gone through it or has experience or can support you in terms of realizing your vision. There's lots of situations in life that happens all the time, right? There are, if I were to look at a different industry, one that comes to mind is the filmmaking industry. There are lots of people that have vision that may be able to articulate in an idea to others who have the experience, and then they craft a brilliant film that everybody loves, right? But it all formulates from an idea. So whether you're highly experienced and you're looking to just offload some of your work, or if you're less seasoned than someone and you're looking to bring someone on that can help you to realize your vision, that's that shared expertise. That's one of those benefits of building a team. Also, you're relying on the performance of others, right? As in any team dynamic, when we all do our best, everybody is rewarded from that exercise. Everybody realizes success when everybody's focused on success. So we're always reliant on the performance of others. So if you're looking at building your brand, but yet you're hiring people who may be on either the same level as you, if this is your first opportunity at this milestone, or less than you even, then the performance aspect might be relatively low because you're all kind of learning from each other, and that's not always a successful formula. A bunch of relatively inexperienced people in a particular scenario trying to teach each other sometimes is a recipe for disaster. But again, if we're incorporating folks who have more experience, and that's what we should always be looking for, is we should always be looking to hire someone or build our team from people who, if you're doing well right now, you always want to look for others who are doing well just like you because they understand the pain points, or someone who's even better than you. Sometimes it's difficult to do that because we're looking at our own ego, right? As a leader, sometimes we look at, if I hire someone else who's equal to me, will that be a challenge to my leadership, or will I be threatened by that, right? And I say egos need to sit at the door, only because what is your ultimate goal? Your ultimate goal is to achieve the maximum output of performance, which creates revenue for you. So always look at leveling up as you're building your team. Another advantage is real estate team members are invested in each other's success, right? So each time there's a new challenge, and if you're communicating well with your team members and your team members are all on the same page, and you've clearly defined your mission and your vision, your mission statement and your vision, everybody knows where this boat is going. Everybody's going to want to pull together to make sure the direction of that boat is successful. So lots of benefits to being a member of a team. Not only are you sharing costs, but you're also sharing revenue, right? So you're getting a piece of others' revenue for the efforts that everyone does. That's kind of a good thing. Not kind of a good thing, absolutely a good thing. Good thing. So there are many different structures to a real estate team, or building that brand structure. There are many different ways to do it. But again, some of the most common roles are, you've got the person who is the leader. Someone's got to lead, guys. Someone's got to lead. Someone's got to be the voice of where we're going, what the overall direction looks like. It's got to be someone. That team leader is typically an agent or a broker who sets the direction and gives strategic advice for the rest of the team. That's that person who has kind of already articulated a mission and a vision. They know what the direction looks like. They know what the steps need to look like in order to achieve those things. They're typically in charge of the formulation of a team. They hire the right people, or they recruit the right people. They're sometimes the ones that are involved in training, although many team leaders that I know will hire a separate person as their training person, as their person to help facilitate the overall growth and educational development of the team, so that everybody is constantly looking at best practices and next steps. And they're the ones who typically hold the team accountable. As the leader in any scenario, in any industry, there's always someone who is giving directives or helping everybody to understand what their purpose is or what their goals are, and they're holding people accountable to those goals and those directions. So that's typically your team leader. A team leader may be someone who is a well-performing licensed practitioner, either on the listing side or on the buy side or both. And then they start to have an overflow of business. In other words, they're doing so well that they've got more business than they can feasibly accommodate as a solo individual. So then they look to hire someone else to help handle the overflow. And typically they may hire someone who classifies themselves as a buyer's agent, or someone who primarily spends their time working with buyers or representing buyers. That's always a licensed person. And their role is, primarily to service the buyers that get generated by the team lead or the listing agent of the team. Sometimes a team leader will hire a listing specialist, which is someone who does what they do, which is focused on listings. Guys, I will tell you, both sides of the house are equal in some respects, but there's a reason why listings actually hold a lot more weight, because listings are our inventory. That's exactly what people are looking for. They're looking for the product. And who is the keeper of the product? A listing agent is the keeper of a product. They're the ones that bring additional inventory to the market that makes it sellable. Once you're a listing agent, and I say this often, which is, when you're a listing agent, when you become proficient as the listing agent, what you're actually doing is, you're just, every time you go on a listing appointment, all you're doing is interviewing your next employer. You're interviewing your next job site. That's really all it is. You're looking to see if what challenges you may or may not have at your next job site, which is the listing itself. But you're the keeper of inventory. So that means all other parties are coming to you because you're the one who has the thing that is for sale. Whereas when you're a buyer's agent, you're constantly at the mercy of what may be available for sale. So that's why there's that inequity when it comes to primarily focusing on buyers versus primarily focus on getting the inventory or the product to market, is because their buyers are relatively plentiful. There are lots of people that want to buy real estate, that want to participate in the lifestyle of real estate. But when there is a minimal amount of availability of product, then you've got a glut of buyers with nothing to show them, right? And sometimes that's not always practical. It's not always the best opportunity to create consistent revenue. Okay. So think about that as you're looking at your team dynamics as well. But it's crucial that you have somebody who's willing to, or who primarily focuses on working with that buyer population. And again, I mentioned earlier about the real estate assistants and the value of that real estate assistant. Again, they can be licensed or unlicensed, but that's that person who is handling all of the administrative dynamics of the business that you're creating. They're the ones who basically run your organization, right? They're responsible for communicating with others, making sure that your transactions are filed on time, so that your documentation flow is always correct and accurate. And again, that all speaks to making sure that we all get paid on time, right? So, hiring a real estate assistants, and again, they can be licensed or unlicensed. They can be compensated in multiple ways. They can be a salary based, but that's that basic core structure. So, a team leader, a buyer's agent, a listing specialist, and a real estate assistant. And it can go deeper than that. Multiple levels. As your business gets more sophisticated, those are things that we want to focus on. So if I were to pull the covers back a little bit more on a team leader, right? Again, I mentioned they lead the team. They're usually the person who founded the team, right? They're the majority of the time someone who's been very successful in the real estate space. They're the ones who are setting the direction and the goal. Again, it's their mission and their vision. It's their business planning that is the actual genesis of the creation of the team. Sometimes they're involved in coaching to make sure that everybody is moving in the right direction. I mentioned before, accountability is everything in this business, right? A really good team leader should be experienced. They should be knowledgeable, have enough industry experience to where they can navigate through difficult situations. They're usually trusted in the industry, and through peers and colleagues. They know that they're a small business owner. They're their own CEO, or they're their own founder. A team leader needs to have the ability or the skill to delegate responsibility and authority, to train the people that they work with. They want to be the driver of a positive culture within their team framework, so that team members are always engaged and motivated, and have the desire and the ability and the tools that they need to perform effectively. The administrative assistant is just like it sounds. That person needs to be organized, helpful, solution oriented. Um, they don't necessarily have to have real estate specific tasks. That's always a plus if they're licensed, because that means there are internal things or industry things that don't have to be taught because they may already know it. So it makes logistics easier, but definitely an admin role is almost critical to the success of a well-oiled team as we look at building our team organization. The buyer's agent, more specifically, is that person who cultivates buyer relationships and fulfills transactional obligations that are necessary to keep that revenue happening. Um, it's not, and buyer's agents, by the way, are not just people who wait for the team leader to generate buyer leads based on their listings, but they're also going out and looking for qualified buyers. So some ways of doing that are conducting seminars or being where people are, um, being of service to the general public and letting them know what may or may not be going on based on industry. As I mentioned, buyers are plentiful. Typically, it's all about the cultivation of those relationships. Those relationships, when I speak of relationships, I mean going out and finding someone who can actually affect a real estate transaction. Not folks who just want to do real estate, but they have no means of support. And typically, when you have a person like this, it's not like they can't, it's just that they can't right now. It's the same as when someone tells you no. It's not that they don't want to do business with you, it's just that they don't want to do business with you right now. Okay. A buyer's agent shouldn't be uncomfortable meeting other people. They should be very comfortable in the public space, in the public limelight, because that's the primary job. They're getting on the phone. They're doing seminars. They're meeting people who they haven't met yet in order to have conversations about the potential of getting into the real estate lifestyle. Right? They're converting suspects to prospects. So they're doing quite a bit. It's a very people-oriented type of role. So that buyer's agent should be someone who has the ability to engage others quickly and effectively. Okay? The inside salesperson, as I mentioned before, is someone who is the cultivator of new leads. They're similar to a buyer's agent in a way, but what they're doing more specifically is for your entire operation as that team lead. That inside salesperson, their primary job is to generate new leads. They're doing lots of outbound communication, right? They're not just sitting around waiting for the phone to ring, but when the phone does ring, they're making sure that they're qualifying those leads to make sure that they can pass those off the other members of the team in order to keep that revenue train moving, right? Leads are great, and we could have a whole pot of leads, but if we have a whole pot of leads of people who don't want to do business with us right now, we don't have leads, right? We just have a pot of names of people who are not going to do business with us right now or ever. So that inside sales agent, and again, that can be a licensed person or an unlicensed person. Primarily, it's a licensed person, but they are essentially warming up leads. They're making outbound calls. As a matter of fact, they're doing that for the listing agent. They're doing that for the team lead, and they're doing that for the buyer's agent. What did you find that was interesting about this thing? They're really a master at scripts, and again, warming those potential customers up for you to go out and do your job. They're very comfortable on the phone. They're a great communicator. They've got a command of the language. They're good with emails and text. They've got no problem starting off conversations with complete strangers. Again, very much like a buyer's agent. You've got, this is a no guts, no glory kind of a business. This is, a trial by fire. The only way to win is just to do it in this business. But we like to say we do it with purpose. We do it with information, armed with information, so that people can make the appropriate decisions. Inside salespersons, as I said, should have a real estate license. There are some that can function without, but it limits the amount of conversations that they can have because, again, once we start to get into the minutia, the details about real estate, then we no longer have the ability to function without a license. It usually requires a license beyond a certain point. Okay. And of course, the listing agent. I mentioned, listings are gold because you are the keeper of the inventory. You are the one who is actually bringing the product to the market. It's the yang to a buyer's yin. A listing specialist doesn't does just what their title says. They list property. They are the keepers of inventory. A listing agent, in many respects, is the employer, right? And the reason I say that is because getting their buyer that particular product. And particularly when there's a hot market like there has been recently, or a highly competitive market because there's so little inventory and so many buyers and buyers agents that want that property, the listing agent can command, with the permission and the authority of the seller, to make decisions on where it goes or where it doesn't go, right? Typically, they're reviewing all of the best offers. So it makes them the employer in a scenario. But, as a buyer's agent, you spend a lot of windshield time. You spend a lot of computer screen time because you're constantly researching for new product to show your buyer. But then you're also physically in the car with or without your buyer to make sure the neighborhood meets the standards, to make sure the property itself, beyond just the pictures that we're seeing on the internet, is absolutely the product that your client's looking for. A buyer specialist is doing detailed pattern interviews to make sure they are in fact looking for that they are in fact on the right track for what that buyer is looking for. But a listing agent is that person that once they get the property listed, for marketing purposes, their job is essentially done until they have a buyer prospect. So if they've marketed that home correctly, that home will sell. If they've priced that home correctly, that home will sell. So listing agents are often masters, or the listing specialist is a master of the marketing theory or strategy. They're a master of that marketing presentation. Even though we call them affectionately listing presentations, they're really marketing presentations. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, how am I going to market your home? What are the steps we're going to do to make sure that your home is marketed effectively, right? And that effective marketing of a home is, will it sell for the price that we want to list it at? Is the condition of it up to market standards or above? All those things, right? The primary role of the listing agent is to make sure that they're doing that deep dive in terms of market analysis. Is their home priced so above anything else that it'll never sell? In which case, it's a wasted exercise. Believe it or not, some agents do that because they look at it as, well, at least I'll collect the buyers even if this house doesn't sell. My general take on that is that's the wrong attitude, primarily because we want everything that we put on the market to be sellable. That's the goal of it. And everything will sell, by the way, if it's priced correctly. Even your worst condition home will sell if it's priced correctly. But if you priced it too high, chances of it sitting on the market and becoming a market reject are very high because there's just no opportunity for success at an overpriced home. It's that principle of substitution. Nobody's going to pay more for something when they can get the same thing for equal or less without any delay, right? So if we think about that, that's one of that key components of a very successful listing agent is they know that the home has to be priced according to what market standards dictate. The condition of quality of the home have to be in line with what they're looking to price that home for. And they have to be realistic in the expectations and helping to manage and define the seller's expectations. Okay. Um, a listing agent is a closer, for sure. You're starting to see it more and more in buyer agency, but listing agents are always articulating their value. They're always letting the seller know you should hire me, and here's why. And this is why I'll do what you're asking for. I'll fulfill the thing that you need, right? It's not about hard work. Everybody, I've listened to hundreds of listing presentations, if not thousands, of listing presentations from different agents over the years. And I've heard this quite a bit. It seems to be a common theme, a standard, with agents saying, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I promise to work hard. That's your job, right? That's the job, to work hard. That's part of the job, not necessarily even working hard, but working effectively. But that's not a differentiator, right? Because you should be working effectively. That's the goal, is to get the property sold. That's the whole purpose for marketing. So again, you're using several different skills simultaneously. The negotiation process, the ability to exercise when to close and what you're closing for as a listing specialist. All of those things come into play simultaneously. And you're going out on lots and lots of listing appointments. A good listing agent, in theory, is closing 3 out of every 10 appointments. A great listing agent is closing, 3 and better. And there are lots of agents that can go out and close 3 or better because they've laid lots of solid groundwork. But a good listing agent knows that they're not going to close everything. There are a lot of factors that go in when you go out on a listing appointment. And sometimes that's the relationship that, whether spoken or unspoken, is immediately recognized between you and the seller. Right? It's got to be a good fit too. But a listing agent is a specialist on many different levels. They also, by default, become a buyer specialist in some respects, because oftentimes when someone's putting a home for sale, particularly if they plan on moving to the same area in which they live already, they're going to need to find a replacement property, a replacement home. So by default, that listing agent then subsequently becomes a buyer's agent as well, a buyer specialist. But typically in a team dynamic, that listing agent or that listing specialist is now able to pass that buyer side of the business along to the buyer specialist in the team, because that's the dynamic, that's the role of the buyer specialist. Okay. And then, as you look at the collective of the entire team, again, each one is working seamlessly to make sure that everybody wins, that everybody succeeds in this. And as you look to build your team, you may have a different viewpoint. Again, there's no right or wrong to this. There are formulas that we look at. Some work a little better than others. Some are a little bit more simple to execute. But no matter how you structure your team, you want to make sure that not everybody's a bass player on your team. Not everybody's a lead guitarist on your team, right? If you were formulating a band, there's a movie that came out a number of years ago called This Is Spinal Tap. And that movie was great because everybody played the same instrument. So, with the exception of the drummer. So it was a really funny movie. It was a spoof of a documentary. But again, not all of you are going to be the lead guitarist. Not all of you are going to be the bass player. The harmony within a band and the melodic excellence comes from everybody specializing in their own instrument to make beautiful music. And that's how you should be looking at your team. How are you going to make the best music? How are you going to be the most successful? And that means that you're going to probably have multiple specialists on your team in order to be successful. I hope this helped in this series. As always, I appreciate you guys taking some time out to kind of tune in. Some of this is stuff that many of you already know. Some of it is new to you. But as you're looking at next steps, always keep in mind, what is your true goal? What is your true vision? Have you laid out your mission effectively so that your team has a path to follow? Guys, thanks as always for participating. I will see you in the next Building a High Performance Team series. Have a solid weekend, and I will talk to you later. Bye, guys.